about country boy Carl, baddest man you ever seen, still your soul with a snarl. If he ever had a problem with you, better get gone, cause you may not be alive by the end of this song. Everybody always wondered what made him that way. Guess it never really mattered, cause the facts still remain. He ain't taking no losses and he'll never run away. That's the way that he thinks to this day. He said, it's my time, it's my time. I won't lose and can't stop my drive. It's my place and I can't wait, and I won't break, so get on my way. Oh yeah, it's my time, it's my time. I won't lose, can't stop my drive. It's my place and I can't wait, and I won't break, so get on my way. Oh yeah, it's my time.
in, coach. I've been going hard, time to let it show. Everything raw, give it to me now. Let me have a spot, man, it's going down. Day and night. There comes a time when your worlds will collide. Gotta get a win, I won't lose a game. This is my year, I ain't gonna break.
Good evening, race fans, and welcome to iRacing's coverage of the second race for the 2024 eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series, live from the virtual Homestead-Miami Speedway in Homestead, Florida. I'm James Pike alongside Taylor Burris. And Taylor, if you want a good litmus test track amongst those that are on the Contender Series schedule, I can think of few better places to deem that honor and give that title than Homestead-Miami Speedway. If you're good here, you stand a good chance of making it through the Contender Series. If you don't have a good night here, you've got a lot of work to do over the next 5 weeks.
Absolutely, James. This track here will test the mights of each and every single one of these drivers, whether these drivers prefer to be down on the bottom of the racetrack or right up against paper thin against that outside wall. We're going to see who's going to be able to test their might to see if they can survive and maybe avoid getting a couple of stripes and progressing their way forward to the chance to moving on to the 2025 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series.
It's our second consecutive mile-and-a-half racetrack on the calendar as we take a look at where we've been and where we're headed. But first, if you don't have a good sense of how to get to the Contender Series and how we got here, this is how it starts. You go back in the beginning of the year. The eNASCAR qualifying iRacing Series open to anyone with a Class A oval license. They run about 7 or 8 races, take the top 70 in points from that. They run round 2, the top 20 from round 2 make it to this Contender Series. Also, the drivers who finish 20th or lower in the point standings from the season's Coke Series will compete in the Contender Series. So you get 20 from qualifying, 20 from Coke. They'll compete, and at the end of the season, the top 30 in points for the Contender Series head to the Coca-Cola free agency period to get us set for the Coke Series in 2025. Small change from years past. 30 drivers that will be eligible for that, not just 20 as in years prior. So, big night of racing ahead. But before we get to tonight's action, let's take a look back at what happened at Las Vegas Speedway. Taylor Hurst ended up winning this race, but it was not without plenty of twists and turns, Taylor.
It certainly was. How about, of course, our pole sitter, Ryan Luza, having a big contact right up against the wall. He didn't able to recover, but still not the way. And then, of course, Nate Stewart, Garrett Maines, and several others in this big one, an altercation. And, of course, eNASCAR's very own Blake McCandless having to work his way through in the drafty car machine. And then, of course, more issues for drivers such as Malik Ray, who just had a big issue and needs to find a way to recover.
They ran low, they ran high, they ran all over the place at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. One more big incident before we got our final green flag run of the evening, but once they got green flag racing and stopped bouncing off of each other, Taylor Hurst played tire strategy beautifully in the second half of this race. Little contact here that ended up sending Kwame Scott around, but once Hurst got to the front, he pitted later than everybody else, caught the edge of the green flag run, was able to drive up through the front of the field, past Wyatt Tinsley and company, and then drove off as they continued to fight behind him. Michael Bumgarner there sent up into the fence, and a few others. A lot of contact on the front straightaway, but Taylor Hurst was in his own zip code as the Winston-Salem, North Carolina native picked up his first competitive win in a handful of years in eNASCAR competition, and more importantly, enters tonight with the eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series points lead.
He certainly is, and he was definitely on a good feeling after coming off that win. As we take a look at the schedule here, as we are on race 2 of the season, we'll get ready to head off to Phoenix the following week, and then Darlington, Richmond, Dover, and round out the season finale November 19th at Texas Motor Speedway.
One more mile and a half after tonight, but it's the last race of the season at Texas, and that one usually has a very active cut line, so we'll see how things shake out around that 30th position in points. But for now, Taylor Burris, tell us more about Homestead-Miami.
Of course, the Homestead-Miami Speedway opened in 1995. It was sort of similar to what Indianapolis was, just of course a little bit smaller, a mile and a half. And of course they readjusted the banking, so about 18 to 20 degrees, 4 on the front straightaway. And of course, the last time we raced the eNASCAR Contender Series, Vicente Salas took home the checkered flag here. And of course, he's not here this time around for the Contender Series, so we'll see who else could be the new winner here at the Homestead-Miami Speedway.
Salas was able to finish top 20 in points, ended up in the playoffs for the Coke Series this year, and doesn't have to compete. The Contender did the hard work throughout the Coke Series season. Tonight's race will be 100 laps, 150 miles, just under 250 kilometers. Drivers will have to pit at least once. 3 additional tire sets available to these drivers this evening. Pit road speed 50 miles an hour, but most importantly, you've got pit stops that will come on a green flag run. If it goes all the way without a yellow to interrupt, that margin usually ends up being in the length of that run, ends up being in the ballpark of 66 to 70 laps. If you're splitting tires halfway, it's about 50 laps. So depending on how the cautions fall and how many we do or do not receive, we can see drivers come in as early as lap 50 or maybe as late as lap 70, or if we get a yellow flag, Taylor, they could come in earlier. That's just part of the strategy here in Las Vegas.
It is the
or
strategy.
Homestead, rather.
I'm getting ready to say here at Homestead as we pick up Tyler Gary, of course, competitor in the 2023 championship, looking to try to make his return. Of course, Florida native, along with a couple of other drivers here, including Ray Alfala. So the Royal Palm Beach driver will be looking to have a good run here tonight after he's trying to work his way through. The team that he's with, of course, Legacy Esports, are looking forward to working with him once again and trying to get him back into the Coke Series in 2025, as they have quite a bit of work to do after a little bit of a tough week last time out at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway.
It was a little bit of a tough week for Tyler Gary. Finished in the 13th spot, but had to go through a lot to get there, but did say he was hoping that the home cooking, this being his home track of the eNASCAR World, would allow him to have a slightly better finish this time around. Here's a good look at Matthew Morton, driver out of Pickerington, Ohio, racing for Nexus Esports, one of a handful of drivers they have in this Contender Series, and a driver that, like a lot of these drivers in this series, have a tremendous amount of experience in independent leagues and official races on the sim. So for Matthew and for just about everybody in this field, this is not their first rodeo. It's more of a matter of how did the cards fall and how do you perform when you're racing against some of the best of the best in the world of eNASCAR.
Absolutely here, and as qualifying is continuing to wind down here, a couple of more drivers are trying to set time. Matthew Morton goes up to P3. Connor Yarashak, who we saw in the front row last time out, as we see Ryan Doucette currently on the track. He's about to start his first flying lap as he comes out of turn number 4 and sets across the line. Let's see what he can accomplish. It looks like he's about to start that first lap here. He did not set time at the moment, so a little bit of work to do. We'll see what he's done, but look at that. Running right up against that outside wall. That's what we're going to see a majority of these drivers trying to do here from the start of the race, because that's the fastest way to get around Homestead-Miami Speedway nowadays compared to some of the early days where we run right up against the bottom of the racetrack like we see here.
And when this track was reconfigured in 2003, you're right, Taylor, the bottom was the fastest way around. Here, you've got a little bit more options now that the track has weathered in a little bit, and the scan and the laser data that iRacing picked up when they scanned Homestead-Miami initially is picked up some of that wear too. So it's not quite the same surface that it was some 20 years ago, but still a racy surface, very close to the old Atlanta Motor Speedway before that was reconfigured in advance of the 1997 NASCAR Cup Series season. If you want more information on how to start your iRacing career, log on to iRacing.com today. You can learn about the world of eNASCAR, some road racing, dirt racing, all kinds of motorsport that you can get involved with on the iRacing service, and potentially maybe a spot in the eNASCAR Contender iRacing series someday. But for now, let's turn our attention to the starting grid. Calgary, Alberta's Connor Yarashak back up at the front row with a fast time of 33.073 seconds. He'll look to rebound from a disappointing start last week. Ryan Lusa to his outside of the front row. Matthew Morton, Wyatt Tinsley, Cody Bias, Dylan Alt complete the first 3 rows.
Moving on down the line here, it's going to be Michael Vendahl, of course, from the Newport News, Virginia. Alongside him will be Kwame Scott from Nexus Esports. And then row number 5, rounding out your top 10, is the Norse Force Racing of Brian Mercurio and Michael P. Frisch. Rounding out in row 6, Quentin Warman and Blaze Crawford.
Warming at a top 10 car all night long at Las Vegas 1 week ago. One to watch, one of the youngest competitors in tonight's race. Matthew Zwack, Eddie Kerner have contender experience. They're here. Christopher Hill and Timmy Holmes, who was in the Coke Series racing for RFK this season, is there. Logan Clampett looking to make a Coke Series return alongside Cabe McClenny, who will try and find his way to the Coke Series for the first time out of Bakersfield, California.
We see Agnell Phillips and Malik Ray from Greer, South Carolina, rounding out your top 20. Colin Keister, and of course, last week's winner from Las Vegas, Taylor Hurst in row 11. Garrett Maines and Tyler Gary are rounding out row 12, the Ryco and Legacy drivers.
Matt Busso looking for a return to Coke Series action. Kevin Harvick, Inc. driver, will start in 25th alongside High Point, North Carolina's Brad Wright. Kentucky's Nate Stewart joins another North Carolinian, Michael Bumgarner, who's got experience in limited late model action in real life at Hickory Motor Speedway. He'll start 28th. James Wenzel and Briar LaPrade out of Manchester, Tennessee complete the top 30.
Mr. Four-time and Cape Coral, Florida's very own Ray Alfalo will be starting in row 16 alongside Colin Bowden. In row 17, we'll see the Nexus driver of Ethan Lane alongside the A51 Pro driver of Dalton, England. Rounding out in row 18, Dylan Jones and Kevin Champagne.
Final four drivers on the grid this evening are Ryan Doucette, who you saw in qualifying earlier, Alexander Russell, Raleigh, North Carolina's Blake McCandless, and Brandon Houck, the 40th and final driver on the grid for race number 2 of the 2024 eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series from Homestead-Miami. Cars begin to work their way onto the racetrack, and Taylor, you get a good look at the weather conditions here, and you get a good sense of how this track will be hot, will be slick, will make for some tire wear, and will give drivers some decisions that they have to make early on in these runs.
Absolutely. I mean, 82 degrees the air temperature, but notice the wind speed right there, 13 miles now, 12 mile an hour. It's going to be very interesting to see which way that wind is going to be blowing, if it will help or hinder them on certain parts of the run here, as well as how much that car is going to push through the middle of the corners, especially around these dirty areas that these drivers are going to have to put themselves through when they negotiate through traffic. But how about this, James? Of course, once again, both Yerashak and Luza on the front row just swapped their positions pretty much compared to what we saw last week at Las Vegas.
This week it is the round 2 champion of the eNASCAR qualifying iRacing series that will have the honor of leading this field to green flag racing as Yerashak flies under the flag stand, and we are underway with round 2 of the eNASCAR Contender iRacing series from Homestead-Miami. Yerashak and Luza have not settled out who wants to be the leader as they make their way down the backstretch for the first time. Some drivers door to door already, 2 and 3 wide, spreading out using every lane of what is a relatively wide Homestead-Miami Speedway to try and gain track position early.
Yeah, absolutely, but you got to be careful with how much that car will push off corner exit here in turn 3 and 4, as we saw a couple of drivers just scrape against the wall as they rocket down the front straightaway here side by side for the race lead, as Luza tries to nose out ahead of Yerashak right now. Morton in the catbird seat, and of course we saw Wyatt Tinsley, how well he ran last week. He is continuing that trend in the 4th position as everyone's trying to jockey for position 2, 3 wide further back.
Starting off this race, a lot of drivers have made their way either to the bottom or right along that first seam, just on the outside edge of that groove running right next to the apron. I've heard a lot of drivers say, especially in the next-gen car, if you run Cup Series racing or NIS racing, that's where you want to be. It's a little bit different with the Xfinity machine, but for now, it's Ryan Luza who has jumped ahead of Yerashak and taken the race lead, and Luza would love to have a good finish and rebound after a tricky night. He picked up some damage early on in the race, ended up 24th 1 week ago at Las Vegas. Would love to turn his fortunes around with a good run tonight.
Yeah, he certainly is. Same thing with Yerashak. He was also one of those front runners, and then, of course, had a small mistake where the car just did not want to grip up in that middle stage of the run. So hopefully him and his team worked hard enough to where they could be able to get that long run pace set up for him in order to make sure he can maintain. How about this? 3 wide as we ride on board with Vendaval as they work through the middle of turn 1 and 2. That's Matthew Zwack on the bottom in the Nitro Circus color, but Vendaval in that Nexus Esports Ford really trying to hold off the hard chargers such as the rookie of Quentin Warman.
Venable's got connections all over. Nexus represented with a few drivers in this series. The Newport News, Virginia Beach, Hampton Roads area has some representation in this series. Wyatt Tinsley from not too far away in Hampton. And oh, by the way, credit to Venable, who's running a bit of a throwback to the old Kurt Busch-Irwin scheme that you saw about 20 years ago with what is now Roush Fenway Keselowski Racer, with that same sort of blue and yellow on his car. So if you want to file that away, if you're trying to find Venable's number 95 car on the racetrack, that's your closest analog. Venable currently has a spot in the top 10. You get a good look at how these drivers have very quickly decided to get to the bottom, unless you're running a little bit further back. There are a few drivers that are running that high line. Christopher Hill is up there. Garrett Maines is up there. And I noticed a little bit further back in the field, Blake McCandless is also running the high lane pretty early on to try and gain some track position.
Keeping an eye here as we watch Venable and Quentin Warman here going side by side. Michael Frisch right there in the mix, trying to show the nose, finding which lane is the best way to get around here. I actually talked to Michael Frisch a little earlier today, and he knows he had a rough start last week at Las Vegas, but you know what? He's ready to get back on it. Homestead is one of his strongest tracks these past couple of years, and he feels like this could be a great place to make up points and make up ground on his competition. And of course, him and North Sports Racing have been working together for the past couple of years, and appreciates the hard work and the camaraderie that team has when it comes to preparing for these big events and this series to give him the opportunity to compete in the eNASCAR Coke Series in the future.
Like Tyler Gary, another native South Floridian out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So this too is Frisch's home track in the world of eNASCAR, and a driver who has extensive experience in this Contender Series and at this level of eNASCAR. Has not made it to the Coke Series yet in his career, but has all the laps in the world racing in Contender to try and make it into the Coke Series for the first time in 2025. Here's a look at last week's race winner, Taylor Hurst out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, racing for Lockdown Racing. Had a really, really good run, played the tire strategy perfectly, had fresher tires on that last green flag run than anyone else in the field. That's a large part of why he was able to drive up through it this time around. Currently scored 23rd, and one of those drivers who's bounced between the low line and that line just on that seam. As we take a look at the action here with Briar LaPrade just ahead of him. If you want more updates from the world of eNASCAR, scan the QR code on the lower right-hand portion of your screen, courtesy of iRacing, the official simulation partner of NASCAR.
Yeah, Taylor Hurst, though, really a great run. He's planning on keeping it down on that low line as much as he can possible to help save some tires. Him and his crew chief, Logan Sheets, who's been up on the box for him this season in both Contender as well as in the qualifying series earlier this year, have been really working well together, and he feels easy and comfortable with those strategy calls that we can make and see him. He's got an extremely fast car for the long run, so keep an eye on him when those strategy calls come into play, that he might have a shot at the front of the field later on tonight.
Driver who may have a shot at the front of the field here, at least from this point. Look at Michael Bumgarner make the move to the inside. The Taylorsville, North Carolina native trying to get a spot away from Taylor Hurst. So two Tar Heel State natives trying to duke it out with one another next to a Tennessee driver. And then just ahead of them, Powhatan, Virginia's Garrett Maines, just outside of Richmond, Virginia, is where you'll find Garrett's home. And Garrett currently scored in the 21st position, just on the edge of the top 20.
Yeah, Garrett Maines had a little bit of a disappointment, to say the least, when it came to his run. He's looking forward to just rebounding for a top 10. If he can get that, that's a good enough run for him, as we watch Colin Keister work his way up through the field and having a little bit of a fight with the 05 machine as they rocket off the back straightaway here. And Colin Keister looks to the inside, and he'll try to send it to the 05 of Cade McClendley.
Colin Keister racing for Dead Zone Racing, former winner in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, and a native of Frostburg, Maryland, looking to the inside. And that's one thing that I've noticed very early on in this race, Taylor, is that the majority of the passes, especially as you get up close to the front of the field, are from folks trying to get to the inside as there's a wreck behind. Taylor Hurst, Ray Alfalla, Colin Bowden in trouble as we get our first yellow flag of the evening. Alfalla, I think, just escaped with a little bit of damage, but Hurst and Bowden got the worst of it.
Significant damage to both Taylor Hurst and Colin Bowden as he will take the tow down onto pit road. Unfortunate for your last week's race winner, and just shows you how basically 1 minute you could be on top of the world, the next you're on pit road and now out of this race.
Heavy damage for Hurst. Dylan Jones also got a piece of that, as did Alfala and Bowden, as Ryan Luzo will control this field as they find the pace car for the first time, some 13 laps into tonight's 100-lap race. But first yellow flag, and it involves the driver that 1 week ago found himself in victory lane. He would now find himself on pit road trying to get this car fixed up. Taylor, here's a replay. We'll take a look at what happened. You see Taylor Hurst and Colin Bowden center of the screen.
Yeah, they're going to go side by side. You see Hurst has a little bit of advantage, going to stick to the inside, and then Bowden just comes down a little bit on it. I mean, both of them were in, and then, of course, Alfala, nowhere to go for him. Same with Dylan Jones. So it's just two drivers, by the looks of it, trying to just go up. Maybe Hurst washed up, Bowden trying to come down a little bit. Here's a better angle as we ride on board with Blake McCandless. And, yeah, it looked like Hurst just came up just a tick, maybe hit a little bit of that berm right there where it caused a little bit of the car to get loose, wash up, and unfortunately collects multiple drivers in this first caution.
Hard to tell if Hurst was tight on corner entry there or whether or not he didn't realize he had someone outside of him, but in either case, up in the fence he goes. And I think Jones and Alfala are the unluckiest people of all in this. There was nothing that Alfala could have done, and Jones tried to check up, but it just took a little while for him to get on the brakes, and all of a sudden you see two cars spinning in front of you. Not much you could do, even if you are clamped down all the way, to stop yourself. So Jones picks up damage. Alfala's got damage to both the left front and the right front of his car. Jones's damage is all on the left front. Hurst with significant damage all over. Bowden with significant damage all over. I wonder whether or not we will see Hurst or Bowden back on the racetrack tonight. I think Alfala and Jones will have the opportunity to repair their cars, but it's a long, long amount of work for Bowden and Hurst. And for Hurst in particular, I guess it's a good thing that you've got the win banked from Las Vegas 1 week ago, so this isn't totally going to throw your championship hopes and your hopes to make you got a contender in question. But this now becomes a race where he has to sort of work back out of, and you've got a few races that you'll have to dig yourself out of the hole. This is Agnell Phillip out of Brooklyn, New York, racing for A51 Pro. They have a few drivers in the Contender Series this year and racing a car that looks very similar to the one that Dale Earnhardt Jr. debuted in 2008 when he made the jump to Hendrick Motorsports, that same sort of green and red and white out of Amp Energy. That's one we've seen before. That's also similar to the scheme that I believe Jeremy Clements ran at the Roval this past weekend in the NASCAR Xfinity Series.
By far one of my most favorite paint schemes out there on the track. It's a really nice metallic color. Really great job by those guys to give a little bit of throwback and respect to some of the greats, especially when it comes to here in the eNASCAR series. And then, of course, you have the two Altus esports driver of Wenzel and Doucette and Malik Ray, the four drivers who did not come down pit road. Interesting strategy call, but it's a good time to do it because it is early in the race. Give a little test to see how your tires match up to against some fresher tires at this stage of the race.
So Phillip, Wenzel, Doucette, and Ray out early. Worth noting, I think, that Malik Ray tried to use this strategy last week at Las Vegas and ultimately fell back into the pack a little bit and got swept up in an incident. So Malik will be hoping for better luck this time around with the strategy staying out on tires. If you conserved enough at the opening of that green flag run, ran the bottom, there's a chance that this may work out pretty well. As we go back to green flag racing, Phillip has the bottom, Wenzel has the top line, but Phillip was able to get away from everybody else, and now Yarashak looking way high there, just a little bit out of the frame, as Luza's going to try and split the middle between the two Altus cars. Look at Yarashak and Luza go between them to get back to second and third.
I don't think I've ever seen four wide like that coming out of a corner in any form of racing, and we're going to see three wide once again as the Altus gets split by both Wyatt Tinsley and the 42 machine of Dylan Alt as he is just falling further and further back. Yarashak will easily overtake Agnell Phillips for the race lead, and he will now set the pace and be the rabbit in this group as he tries to break away from the rest of the competition.
So Yarashak clear of Phillip. Luza will have the run on the high line. Dylan Alt, who's always strong in these vehicles of the NASCAR Xfinity Series, he's there. Look at this, 4 and 5 wide further back. I've seen 5 wide here at Homestead-Miami in competition before. They're 4 wide for the moment, but it could get worse, and usually in the quarters here it does.
It does. Look how close we see right there. The 98 machine is just hugging that 44 driver, of course, of Logan Clampett, who is just trying to survive and make his way through. That was Eddie Kerner to his inside. Clampett will be able to get around him quickly, but he's still stuck in the middle with several other competitors. Quentin Warman going to the top side of the racetrack following Dylan Alt for this hornet's nest.
All sorts of action here. This is right around the 13th position. Kwame Scott contact a little bit further back with two drivers. Couldn't exactly see who got into it, but it's Michael Bumgardner underneath Matthew Morton further back now as Bumgardner gets on the brakes enough to stay on that inside lane. There's still wheel, door, bumper, clear, wherever, 3 and 4 wide down the front stretch as Gary works to the outside of Garrett Maines.
4 wide. Here comes Briar LaPratte to the inside of Malik Ray as he's trying to snake his way through. Garrett Maines right there in the middle lane of a 4 wide battle for position. Oh, there goes around the 77 machine of Doucette. He's going to gather it back up as multiple cars also spinning on the back straightaway.
No caution yet. Drivers spun off of the racing service and down to the apron. So we stay green flag racing, and that will allow Luza to continue this campaign to take away the race lead from Connor Yarashak. Yarashak, who had all kinds of speed in the opening handful of laps and then had some internet issues last week at Las Vegas, looking to prove that he's got more speed than he showed 1 week ago and that he is someone that is determined to not only make the top 30 in Contender, but go well above that bar.
He's certainly doing that. A lot better run compared to what we saw at Las Vegas, putting on a stellar drive. Of course, he was one of the top runners for the qualifying series during the round of 70, where those drivers are just trying to battle it out to get those coveted spots here to make it into the Contender series. Yarashak was one of the front runners, so great drive for him to hold off the eNASCAR competitor of Ryan Luza.
Luza, Yarashak, Wyatt Tinsley's up to third, Alt Bias. If you're wondering about the drivers who took or didn't take tires, Agno Phillips 22nd, Malik Ray is 28th, James Wenzel is 33rd, Ryan Doucette is 37th. Doucette got spun there off the exit of turn 2, but main point there, it did not work staying out for any of those drivers as we get a good look at this battle between Dylan Alt, Cody Bias, Matthew Zwack, and Michael P. Frisch.
Yeah, good battle here. Alt having a good run, Bias trying to stay close, and Matthew Zwack, who's needing a decent run as well, trying to stay tucked up behind single file for the most part for your top 8 as they try to work their way around. Tinsley thinks about going around the outside. Remember, he had a good car last week at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and he's really going to showcase some speed here tonight at this 1.5 miles.
Zwack absolutely could use a huge run out of this. Ended up 35th 1 week ago, and this is the kind of run that would help get his Contender Series campaign back on track if he can come away with a top 5, a top 10, get himself back towards the top 30 and back in the pool of eligibility for free agents.
Here we're going to take a look at the incident, what happened with Briar LaPratte. You see right here, they were going to go 3 and 4 wide. He makes contact with Doucette, and then Garrett Maines will make more contact as LaPratte comes up the track. Hard contact to the inside wall, but due to the fact they are out of the racing line, we're still going to keep it green. So Briar LaPratte not having the best tonight as we pick up the battle for the race lead. Luza has a good run to the bottom of the racetrack, side by side. Yarashak still holds on that lap.
Luza, though, with that big drive off into the inside lane, and Ryan Luza back to the point at Homestead-Miami. This is a place where he's had plenty of success at in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series in years past and in car combos past. Also worth noting, as a part of the incident between LaPratte and Doucette, Tyler Gary was that purple car that you might have seen in the replay pinched up against the fence. He has significant left side and right side damage. Came down pit road to try and get that car fixed up, but currently scored 1 lap down in the 38th position, well off the pace and about, call it maybe 6 or 7 seconds back of the main pack, if not a little bit more.
Yeah, he's already 1 lap down. He's going to have a lot of help for him, see if anything else is able to recover from this situation. Not a good week for Tyler Gary here. Definitely going to have to chalk this one up as we see now Wyatt Tinsley and several others, and watch the battle between Matthew Zwack, Cody Bias, and Michael P. Frisch. How about Blaze Crawford and Logan Clampett fighting their way into the top 10? Clampett definitely one of the ones to keep an eye on as he is looking to have a revenge tour, almost a return to the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series in 2025.
That was a little bit scary there between Cody Bias and Blaze Crawford. They made contact right in front of Clampett, and they checked up a little bit. Otherwise, that could have been one car up on the fence. Here comes Clampett, though, on the high line, working to the outside of Crawford and gets into the back of Cody Bias. And that's not the first time I've seen these drivers give some pretty significant bumps, almost like they're bump drafting down the straightaway. But you have to remember that with these vehicles in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, these bumpers are not flat, They're not square. There's no real place where you can attach the front of one car to the rear of another car and have it be grippy and make it stick. And it's very easy then, as a result, to spin some of these cars out from the rear if you give a bad bump, even in a straight line.
Absolutely here. And speaking of spinning, we saw a very exciting race last time out for the eNASCAR College Series over at Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway Park. And of course, the next go round, of course, is going to be at the Kansas Speedway for the NASCAR Xfinity cars. Time attack's going on October 15th to the 24th, and the main event, October 29th.
Matthew Zwack usually represents the University of Michigan and Ann Arbor in College Series competition, and also worth noting that it will be these vehicles of the NASCAR Xfinity Series that will be used in that next race at Kansas. College Series flips between the trucks and the Xfinity vehicles and heads to one of the best mile and a halves in all of eNASCAR in 2 weeks' time. Zwack currently
trouble here, Jack.
Trouble
right there.
Trouble for Connor Yarashak. One of the fastest cars in this race is in the fence with heavy front end damage to bring out the second yellow flag of the evening.
Tough break right there for Connor Yarashak. He was having a decent run, but I saw just right there in the background that there was a contact, and around he will go, and we'll get another look at the replay here. A tough break, though, for one of your front runners here tonight, and that's definitely going to be a DNF for Yarashak once again.
Yarashak is already disconnected from the server, so Yarashak, I think, immediately done for the evening and frustrated, especially after the way his campaign has begun. 2 races and 2 big-time struggles over the course of the first 2 weeks. 31st last week, and he may well end up dead last this week, as a lot of these drivers will come down pit road. But as we take a look at the replay, Taylor, just a little bit of contact here between Yarashak and Dylan Ault.
Yeah, Dylan Ault gets a great run off corner exit, just has the nose. Yarashak, though, just comes up as he's normally doing when you come off corner exit, and unfortunately collects Michael P. Frisch, Blaze Crawford, Logan Clampett, some major contenders inside the top 10 as we ride on board with Cody Bias. See what happens with him as he's able to try and snake his way through. Barely does. I think gets into the back bumper of Michael P. Frisch briefly. So we'll see how much significant damage he has to do to the nose of that Toyota Supra. He's staying out, though.
Frisch got some damage. Blaze Crawford just snuck through that somehow, some way. I saw him sneak in right behind Yarashak and company and did not pick up any damage from what I could tell, which, given how close he was to Yarashak and Ault getting in the fence, very impressive work from the Phoenix, Arizona native to make it out of that one and maintain a top 5 position. Also, we have 4 more drivers who have decided to stay out on old tires. 16-lap old tires for Luza, Bias, Matt Busa, and Brandon Houck. So those 4 on old tires. Crawford actually is one of 3 drivers who took 2 tires, and Crawford will be the first driver amongst the drivers that came down pit road on the grid when we get back to this restart in a handful of laps.
Yeah, Kwame Scott and Cade McClenny also chose to take the 2 tire stop as well. So going to be an interesting strategy call. We have no tires, 2 tires, and 4 tires. So it might give a little bit of a bumper for Ryan Luza between him and Wyatt Tinsley, who's the first car with 4 fresh tires to work his way through the field. But we did see, though, on the last green flag run restart, how quickly those 4 fresh tires were able to utilize and work their way up through the field.
So 3 additional sets of tires, and I think this plays out very interestingly, and especially if you look at last week, Taylor, it could be really fun to see how it goes. But for now, let's bring in Trabuco Canyon, California's Logan Clampett, currently scored in the 10th position, racing for Team Conti. Logan, what have you made of the opening 30 laps of this race so far?
We have a bad fast car. We have a really fast car, and it might have just gotten ruined by that wreck, but we were passing people left and right, keeping the tires on it. This is a winning car. Just not the best Q set. So we started, maybe mid-pack, but man, dude, this is such a quick car. If we could have just gotten to the front right there, we probably would have been pulling away. I can easily get by these guys and stuff. Just just got to be patient, and let's see what this damage does, I guess, here. I think the toe's a little knocked out, but we have full power, so hopefully we can make the most of it here.
I have a slightly different scheme on your car this week. You want to tell us about Spotter Wilkes for those who are uninitiated?
Yeah, it's I've known Brandon Wilkinson for quite a while, probably since 2014, and he's currently Nick Ottinger's spotter. And he decided to throw his name on the car for this race. Felt pretty confident about this race, so big thanks to him. And hopefully we can kind of salvage what we have here.
Logan, best of luck to you. We'll let you get back and get ready for this restart, which will come on lap 33 of 100, about a third of the way through proceedings. So, Logan Clampett there, and yes, I can say, having been around the eNASCAR world for a while, Brandon Wilkinson, one of the unsung heroes over at Team Conti. And if you look at a Nick Ottinger, a Matt Busa, a Logan Clampett, if they're fast, usually Wilkes' fingerprints are somewhere on the setup, somewhere on that car to make it run so well.
It takes more than just the driver itself to make sure you have a fast race car week in, week out. You have a lot of great people, and Team Conti is one of those teams that has that group and organization to help get these drivers into the Coke Series.
Back to Green Flag Racing, lap 33 of 100, one-third of the way through tonight's event. Luza, Bias, Busa, Hauk. How quickly can Blaze Crawford and Wyatt Tinsley and company make their way to the front? Look at Tinsley already all the way up near the fence and bringing Clampett with him to try and gain track position down the backstretch.
I don't think that damage is going to hinder Logan Clampett much longer as Busa tries to throw the block there as they go 3 wide behind him. But Wyatt Tinsley shot out of a cannon here along with Logan Clampett as they work their way through the middle. Brian Mercurio in tow as they come off a turn forward 3 wide, 3 rows deep. As Tinsley gets a good run, he'll try to send it around the outside heading into 1.
Tinsley had one of the fastest cars last week. He was only beat by strategy, but of those running on the main strat at Las Vegas, Tinsley was one of the best machines, had a great run. Now back to the point. Tinsley, your new leader on lap 34. Luza back to second. Clampett's made his way up to third. Brian Mercurio up to fourth, trying to turn around his fortunes after his football team didn't have a great night last night, Taylor. So I know he'd love to have a good finish in Contender to make up for it a bit.
Yeah, he needs a little bit of help here as they watch this battle for the race lead and then also watch this battle for 8th, and several drivers just trying to survive. There you see the 6th driver of Holmes trying to just get a good run, and Nate Stewart will follow along with Dylan Jones or Christopher Hill in that 11 machine. Close call, but a struggle for Brandon Hauk, who did not take those tires.
Hauk, with the strategy play, had been plus 36 from where he started in this race on that restart. He's already sliding back a little bit and losing some of the track position. Already back to the 18th position is Hauk, as Tinsley and Clampett and Mercurio are now your top 3. Of the drivers that took 2 tires, Blaze Crawford is the highest running of them, but he's already back in 17th. So 4 tires on these restarts, very clearly the way to go to either gain or maintain track position, Taylor.
Yeah, it really is a good. Maintaining that track position here is critical for when it comes to, as we watch the battle between Eddie Kern and Brian Mercurio. Now, here comes Nate Stewart around the outside of Ryan Luza. This is for the 9th position. And then Nate Stewart now starting to fall back into the clutches of Christopher Hill, along with Quentin Warman, as Maines and Timmy Holmes go side by side for position.
Nate Stewart, another one of those drivers who has plenty of experience in this car, in the College Series, now in the Contender Series for the first time. Said on social media a week ago that he felt like he had top 10 speed before he got turned on his lid at Las Vegas. So yet again, another one of those drivers looking for a turnaround effort this evening and doing a good job of it so far. Just on the edge of the top 10, trying to get underneath Christopher Hill, and just up to the high side, that's Quentin Warman, one of the youngest drivers in this field at 15 years of age. But Warman was consistently quick all last week at Las Vegas, looking to put together another top 10 run to make it back-to-back top 10s to start his Contender campaign.
Yeah, Quentin is actually 16. He turned 16 actually last Tuesday night when we were racing here at Las Vegas. But Quentin, of course, is definitely having a huge confident booster. As we go back up to the race lead here, Eddie Kern now will take over the race lead with this battle. Wyatt Tinsley drops back to second. Clampett still holding on to third, as Kern, with that SG graphics for North Force Racing, takes charge at his Ford.
North Force Racing has really come on to the scene in the eNASCAR world. champion Steven Wilson from a year ago, part of their stables. Parker White, also part of their stables. They have grown in stature in the world of eNASCAR over the last few seasons. And Eddie Kerner, another one of those drivers, has had a few shots at Contender, but looking to make his way into the Coke Series for the first time in his eNASCAR career. As we slide a little bit further back, this is right around the 9th position. Timmy Holmes, Malik Ray, Quentin Warman, all fighting for position.
Garrett Maines leads that charge here as we see Timmy Holmes trying to just stay tucked up, give him a little bit of a push here as they work down the front straightaway, just inches off of his back bumper. Malik Ray trying to just follow suit. As there you see the different lines these drivers are taking. Holmes goes to the top, Maines stays middle, while Malik Ray goes to the bottom of the racetrack, hugging that white line as we now watch on this battle here coming up here. Maines tries to hold strong, but that big outside momentum, though, from Timmy Holmes is going to propel him to the race or that race position.
One of the things that drivers talk to me about in advance of this race is how that outside line is a bit of a double-edged sword, in that if you've got fresh tire, if you've got tire to burn, you can make the outside work on restarts and you can get track position. But if you run up there consistently over the course of a green flag run, you'll end up burning your tires off more so than the drivers who are on the bottom. So you have to be a little bit careful in picking and choosing when you decide to run that high line. We saw Wyatt Tinsley work it to great effect on that restart. Choked right around everybody, but even Tinsley's back on the bottom. Meanwhile, further back here, most people either right along the white line on the bottom of the racetrack or up on that first seam in sort of that second groove, but not a lot of takers trying to run the very highest line around Homestead-Miami.
No, we're not expecting to see any drivers now trying to run that outside line unless, like we said, it's a restart or you absolutely have a stellar run like we see Ryan Doucette trying to do in the 77 as he tries to work around Blaze Crawford for position. And you see how much momentum that gives him to propel. Blaze Crawford will concede to Doucette for the time being as he will move back to P20 for the time.
So Crawford slides back a little bit. You've got a good eye here on Ryan Doucette, who's in this mix. James Wenzel just ahead of him, teammates. So those two with plenty of experience working together, and both of them trying to get around Matthew Morton as elsewhere on the racetrack. This is a pass with Matt Busa, who just gave the spot up to Ethan Lane in that black Toyota Supra just ahead in the 54. Lane to 21st. Busa, the Darien, Illinois native, now back to 22nd.
Yeah, tough break for Busa. He was one of those drivers who decided to stay out, and it's going to be beneficial because everyone else pretty much who is down to maybe one set of tires, maybe some have a two set, but Busa is definitely confirmed for two sets of tires for late stage running. So great opportunity for him if a caution were to come out to get him a chance to get some fresh tires and work his way up through the field, as we could possibly see if that opportunity and that window opens up for him.
Busa, of course, running for Kevin Harvick Inc. here in this Contender Series. Grew up a Kevin Harvick fan. Was thrilled to have the opportunity to run with him. Also got the chance to compete in the Grand National Super Series at New River All-American Speedway on the coast of North Carolina earlier this year, running a chassis that Kevin Harvick ran when he was competing in the Cup Series at Richard Childress Racing back in 2003, which was also the last year of the NASCAR Racing Series that inspired iRacing. So there's your circular history moment, I suppose, of the evening, Taylor.
There you go. Not a bad deal for him. As we now go up a little further, Malik Ray and the two Ryco drivers of Garrett Maines and Quentin Warman are trying to do battle here for position. They are trying to catch up to Timmy Holmes, this battle for P7, as they work around the lap car of Colin Bowden.
So Bowden will stay up on that high line, and Ray and company will all go to the bottom. That sort of strings them out and forces them into a spot and makes them go single file, and then you're just sort of riding at this point. Now, I wonder at this stage, now that we've got a gap between some of these drivers, at what point are you just trying to hang out and lay low and just start clicking off laps and make sure that you've got a good piece? Is Brian Mercurio now working the high line to get around Logan Clampett? Look at Dr. Bob working the high line. Down the front straightaway he goes, and Mercurio now up into the third spot. Yet another driver for NFR, but Mercurio out of North Caldwell, New Jersey, now in a podium position at Homestead.
Yeah, great drive for Mercurio, one of your top three competitors in round two of the eNASCAR qualifying series a couple of weeks or a couple of months ago. So he is definitely going to be one to watch here, as North Force Racing has showcased the top five The only driver who's not in the top 5 that's not part of NFR is Logan Clampett right there, the Team Conti driver. And I think Conti's playing the smart game. He gave that position to Mercurio, tries to save his equipment a little bit to see if he can maybe progress further and hold on to his tires compared to maybe the rest of the field, and if he can work his way back up when these drivers up ahead of him burn off their equipment in the late stages.
Clampett, when we talked to him under that yellow, said he was worried about toe alignment just off of the incident just before they brought out that caution. He was worried whether or not he picked up anything, but even if he's got any sort of damage, doesn't particularly look like it's hurt the car all that much. He's got full power, 2,000 RPMs when he clutches on this engine, so all in good shape for Logan Clampett. He's still got a top 5 run going, and I know would love to pick up these points as he tries to return to Coke Series competition after just taking a break. Said that he needed some time to just sort of regroup and get out of the intensity of competing in the Coke Series for a little bit, but took his talents to the qualifying series, made his way through that, now has an opportunity to return to Coke Series racing, where he spent so many years as a constant contender and perennial threat to victory lane.
Watching on here the 23 machine as he works his way up through the field. Had a great defense. That's Alexander Russell as he is trying to snake his way through inside the top 15 and try to work around the 95 of Michael Vendaval as he goes to the top side here. He's got a good run. He may try to see what he can do, but he's got to be careful with how much he's utilizing that. He's been really trying to work that outside, but look at the run he gets. He'll get tucked up right behind Dalton England as we ride on board with the driver of Alexander Russell. Gets a good run, stays tucked up. The Madison, Wisconsin native, as he tries to move up further into the top 15. He'll move up to P14 with that pass around Michael Vendaval.
The Wisconsinite trying to jump around now that high line to get the spot and work his way up towards the back end of the top 10. Dalton England is next on the list for Russell, and if he can get around England, Nate Stewart is about, call it maybe half a second up the racetrack from this group. So there's Russell to make the pass on England, and now Russell will have the opportunity to try and go get Stewart, who runs in the 12th position. If you want more information on the eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series or any more information on the world of eNASCAR, log on to iRacing.com/eNASCAR to get all the information about eNASCAR competition, the Coke Series, the Contender Series, the qualifying series. You can learn about it all today at iRacing.com/eNASCAR. Alexander Russell running in the 13th position as this race has just crossed the halfway point. Eddie Kerner, your leader at halfway. You get a good look at Agno Phillip in 16th in his A51 Pro Earnhardt Jr. Amp Energy lookalike. He's just ahead of Matthew Morton. James Wenzel, that orange and blue car on the right-hand portion of your picture, is the final car. Well, actually second to final car in this group. He's got Ryan Doucette about a few car lengths behind him, but it's this quintet that's 15th through 19th on the racetrack.
Good fight here, but Agno Phillips, though, is starting to lose a little bit of time here. That opens the door for the 5 of Matthew Morton, but Phillips still with that outside momentum as able to hold on and get the spot for the time being. Now sets his sight to the inside of Dalton England and crossover move as we ride on board with England, and here he goes, starting to fall back, but he will have that outside momentum and hold off this time around as they come out of turn 4.
851 drivers battling each other. Phillips stuck on the high line, tried the pit strategy earlier, didn't quite work out for him, so he took tires. He's been sort of miring around 15th or 20th ever since he got back on the main strategy with everybody else, as England slides up just in front of Matthew Morton with only a fraction of time to make sure that he got out there before Morton was alongside England. And now Phillip will be the one to try that high lane to get some momentum and try and get the spot back from Morton.
Talk about shutting the door on him, but Morton is going to try to keep on putting the pressure on. Wenzel, though, gets a good run along with Phillips, who will now try to cross him over and go to the inside. Beautiful pass, and sets it up to almost clear him, but not going to do it. Gets a little bit loose, gathers it back up, but will now fall back into the clutches of Morton and Wenzel as they come off turn 2.
I think there was a little bit of contact there between Morton and Phillip in the middle of 1 and 2, but they managed to keep it going and not lose too much time. And now Ryan Doucette is being dragged into this because all these drivers racing for position are backing up to the Framingham, Massachusetts native. And Doucette may have the opportunity to do something, might follow his teammate James Wenzel, who has gone to the bottom of Agnil Phillip to try and take away the 17th position.
Just get in there, Ryan, and lean in, and just don't get too close to that wall as he sends it on in. Gets a little bit loose. Look at the hand movement of just trying to get control of his Ford Mustang and gathers it back up, sets his sight, refocuses, and then heads into turn 3 with a little bit of that lean once again. And he'll try to get around his teammate of Wenzel for that spot, but will not be able to. Wenzel gets a good outside momentum to maintain the spot for the moment.
It's part of the challenge of running here at Homestead-Miami. You get enough of a run off the corner that if you're running on that high line, you'll carry momentum, or more momentum rather, than someone running the low line down the straights. But then you go into the corner and you end up giving it back up. So a bit of a cat and mouse game that you have to play as a driver in traffic, because Wenzel got a great run there on Dalton England, and England couldn't get up to the high line and up against the fence down the back straightaway to defend that spot. So Wenzel has the opportunity to take over that 16th position if he can get another good run and get alongside Dalton England on the exit of the corner, which he does. So Wenzel, another Wisconsinite in this field out of Burlington, Wisconsin, now up to 16th, England back to 17th.
Good little side-by-side comparison. I think Phillip's got a little bit of a lean, not as much as we see Doucette right now, but Doucette just trying to hold on and look at him having to turn a little bit to the right in order to make it through that corner. Just shows how much difficulty the handling is right now on Doucette for the time being. He's got a little bit of work to do. Might need to make a couple of adjustments in order to be prepared for his next run. He's been out there for about 28 laps on those set of tires as we move on through the field. Trying to see who that is. That might be Dalton England. Yes, it is right there on screen. Also battling with Phillips for the position.
Taylor, I'm glad you mentioned tire wear, because I think that last yellow came at a very interesting point where you can make it pretty much, especially if you go green the rest of the way. You don't have to come down pit road, but tire wear is significant enough to where I think, especially if you're towards the back of the field, and see Kwame Scott coming down pit road here, maybe giving me some credence, but you have the opportunity, I think, if you're well in the back portion of the field, you may be able to split this run into 2 parts, come down, get tires, and see if you can't gain a little bit of track position. I figure if you're up front, you have license to stay out the rest of the way, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see some people running, anywhere in about 20th on back, Ethan Lane. I figure no point in not trying to roll the dice a little bit, right? Because you're not necessarily losing all that much.
It is the case here, because you're going to want him to come down pit road for tires anyway, and we have a couple more drivers coming down. Michael Bumgarner also comes down pit road to get some fresh tires as well, and it's going to be a big difference. A couple of drivers who have already come down pit road are anywhere between a second to a second and a half faster as they work their way through the field. Brandon Houck, one of the others, and as you see right here with the race analysis, you get those 3 additional sets of tires. Some of these drivers, like you said, will need to only pit once, but the tires are going to be so critical to try and get through the end here, because tires are king here at this track. You want that fresh tires. We saw that even after a 13-lap run, how much 13-lap fresher tires are to older tires. As, Logan Clampett gets a little bit of a bobble and a push from Warman. That will move him back a little bit, and Clampett struggling for some grip as he's getting a little bit bullied around from the rookie.
Quentin Warman out of Urbana, Illinois, with the shove there to Logan Clampett to move Clanton up the racetrack. Now Warman's got that line up against the fence, and Christopher Hill is in the middle between them, so Clampett will slide back a little bit. He'll go back to 9th, Hill to 8th, Quentin Warman now up to 7th, and looking underneath Timmy Holmes for 6th.
He will get that position up and move into the top 6. A great run for the Ryco Performance driver as he's trying to hold on for position here. Timmy Holmes coming through, and here comes Malik Ray right behind him in 10th position. Shot out of a cannon with that big momentum from the outside. Gets around Clampett for 9th position. And I think now he's going to start using up those tires a little bit by trying to get some running on the outside here towards the end of his tire run.
Nate Stewart is down pit road. He was running right on the edge of the top 10, so worth noting where he comes out. Stewart, there you see on your screens, getting what presumably would be his final pit stop of the evening, as Logan Clampett trying to hang on to spots here. Malik Ray running that high line and running out of room to maintain the track position. Timmy Holmes makes the pass. Malik Ray stuck up there. Alexander Russell looked for an opportunity, couldn't find it. Ray still in the top 10, but everybody starting to really try and search for grip now that these tires are pretty worn out across the board.
How about Busa coming in hot here on pit road? He was actually on the binders trying to get down. He's able to get it woed up enough to continue on, but we watch back here with the battle between Russell, Holmes, and Malik Ray as Russell is trying to get that inside lane going. There you see the different lines each of these drivers will try, as you see Clampett and Russell hug the white line. Holmes trying to stick to the middle, and Malik Ray just getting that outside lane working to his advantage as he will pick up multiple spots and move further into the top 10.
Starting to see some of these drivers that save tires begin to be a factor in this, or drivers that have come down pit road. You see Blaze Crawford coming in before this shot. Briar LaPrade was working his way through the field. LaPrade with some damage early, but he's got fresh tires, and you can see just the distance that he creates and the gap he opens up on everyone else on old tires in this field. So if you want to get a visual to see the difference between new tires and old tires, just watch this driver at a Manchester, Tennessee blow past everybody on old Goodyear Eagles.
Yeah, here you see Briar LaPrade. He has been on the move, and in fact, looking over his times here, he has just been picking them up and putting them down as far as the lap times are concerned. He's over a second faster and will continue to be, but the problem is he's a lap down. He's going to lose time when these other drivers decide, if they choose to come down pit road.
So we'll see how things pan out as your leader is in. Eddie Kerner is in from the race lead, coming down pit road for service here on lap 66. So pretty much a perfect split, and splitting this race up into 3 segments of about 33 laps apiece. So a pretty standard strategy from Eddie Kerner, but I wonder how his decision to come down pit road will force everybody else's hand as Matthew Morton now is in for service.
I have a feeling it won't be long. It's just a matter of what lap these drivers are going to come in. Will Mercurio come down this time? What about Tinsley? Maybe some of the drivers who are a little further back outside the top 5 may try to stretch it as long as here comes Mercurio and Wyatt Tinsley as they come down pit road.
So Mercurio in, Tinsley in, Colin Keister is in for service as well. Quentin Warman has made his way down pit road on lap 67 of 100, and that leaves Matthew Zwack as your new race leader, albeit momentarily. We would expect a lot of these drivers here to come down for service. It's about top 20 or so that have yet to come down pit road and get their cars fixed up for what should be the last pit stop of the night, barring any extra yellows. We'll keep an eye here on Zwack, as Zwack will elect to not come down pit road. He'll stay out of the racetrack, but Timmy Holmes will come in. Christopher Hill will come in. Alexander Russell in for service. Agnell Phillip has decided to make the jump down pit road, and James Wenzel, part of this batch of cars on lap 68.
Yeah, really good run here as Matthew Zwack continues to hold on, waiting to see what he will do. The first car on fresh tires right now currently is Ryan Luza. He's currently P8 at the moment. So we'll see what he's going to be able to do with his tires, as here comes Nate Stewart to get back onto the lead lap. And I have a feeling Matthew Zwack, is he coming? Nope, going to stay out another lap. The question is going to be, how long do you want to stay out? And that will put you quite a ways back here for some of these competitors. So as we see, Malik Ray missed pit road.
Ray tried to make it, couldn't get down there. I saw him slowing down, but he couldn't get slow enough. So disaster for Malik Ray. He almost certainly will need a yellow to recover this race. Meanwhile, Ethan Lane is in for service, and a whole few set of others as well came down that last time by. But Zwack's still out there. Malik Ray missed pit road. Blake McCandless is now up to the 4th position. We know Blake's penchant for alternate strategies and zigging where other drivers zag. Wouldn't shock me if we see McCandless stay out for an extended period of time.
I mean, that's going to be, it could be a good strategy call, because if a caution were to come out here, it could be a help for him to be one of those first guys with fresh tires, as we will take a look to see what happened to Malik Ray in his situation right here. He gets right on the binders just about as they come off, but just gets a little too loose on the binders. Is not going to make it. Almost could have been a Kurt Busch incident back in 2000, in the 2000s.
Could have very well been a Kurt Busch incident. So now I wonder if Malik Ray might pivot, because like we said, you're at a point where, and given where that last caution came out, You're right there where you could probably stay out all the way and be okay and not have to come down pit road, but it's going to be close. So if you're Malik, maybe at this point you pivot from the two-stop strategy to the one-stop strategy. It's not ideal, but it's an option that you can take. And if we see an Ethan Lane or a McCandless in particular stay out, Kevin Champagne's also in that boat as well. I figure if you stay out for a few more laps longer, we'll have a pretty good indication quickly that those drivers are trying to stay out the rest of the way.
Yeah, another driver also who's staying out is Ray Alfala after his incident that he had early on. He's trying to hold on for as long as he can. Currently sitting in 10th position right now, so he's got a work to do. Ethan Lane decides to come down pit road. We're waiting now on Ray, McCandless, and Luza, as well as Champagne, to come down pit road inside the top 5 region for the time being. But this could be a good strategy if we see a caution. If not, though, it's only going to be a matter of time before we see drivers like Kerner, Mercurio, or Tinsley get their way up through the field.
Of the bunch, and that quartet especially up front that have yet to come down pit road, Luza is the one with the oldest tires. It's about to be the 60th lap of this stint as Ray finally comes down for service. So Malik Ray comes in. Ryan Luza is on lap 60 on this stint now. McCandless and Champagne on lap 44. So about a 16-lap difference on tires for those two compared to Luza. And Luza then is the next one that we would expect to see. I think at some point Luza's tires are going to force his hand. I don't know if you can make it all the way, somewhat 80 or 90 laps on tires here. That seems like pushing it. So Luza, I figure we'll see in, but I can also see McCandless and Champagne staying out for a pretty long while here.
We may possibly see that here as we go on board with Blake McCandless here as he comes off turn 4. He will log another lap around the circuit here, the Raleigh, North Carolina native. He tries to focus in and lock himself in for a good run. He's got some lap traffic up ahead as he is clutching a little bit. You hear it right there as we go on board, trying to save that little bit of fuel to get to the end of the race.
I think we don't have to question Blake's strategy anymore. He's going to try and make it the rest of the way. It's going to be close. It's possible, but it's going to be close. You can see it there in the corner. We'll take another listen here as he comes down the front straightaway into turn 1. We'll give you a good chance to hear him. He's back on the throttle here on the straightaway, and then on corner entry, you will see it here. Listen as he goes into turn 1. Watch him drop the clutch. And then pick it up again in the middle of the corner. So McCandless absolutely trying to save fuel to make it as far as he can. Now, it won't necessarily be a race-winning strategy, I don't think. Eddie Kerner's already cut this gap down to about, call it, 5-ish seconds or so, I would say. So it's not a huge margin that McCandless is to Kerner, but when you consider that Blake was running in the 20s for a good chunk of this race, anything above that, I think, if you can get it with this strategy, that's a win. And if you get a caution, then you have the opportunity to come down and pit with track position. So either way, we talk about drivers in the back taking chances, pulling some strategy cards to try and make the most of their situation and maybe get a leg up that they wouldn't have on raw pace. McCandless, I think, a perfect example of that.
Him and Ryan Luza by the looks of it as well, because Luza is also just trying to save a little bit and staying close as he possibly can. And just as I say that, he decides to come down pit road. He decides to do that. But looking over Eddie Kerner, though, he's making up 2 seconds a lap compared to your race leader, Blake McCandless. So it's just only a matter of corners, even, before we see Kerner back up at the front of the field.
Yet Luza with the 64-lap tires had no choice. He was going to come down at some point. But McCandless and Champagne, both on the same strategy, trying to run this all the way to the end on fuel and get another 22 laps out of these cars, which would put them right on a 70-lap fuel run, right on the edge of things. And oh, by the way, there's Eddie Kerner right behind Kevin Champagne now.
Stalking him right now as he'll go easily around the outside. One of your biggest movers so far of the night for Kevin Champagne with from 36th to 3rd now. As a good night, points night, if he's able to hold on to the end.
Kerner out there. Also, I think another driver who we should give a shout out to, who played this pit strategy really well and was one of the early drivers to come in and sort of start this wave. Nate Stewart, running back in the 8th position as we ride on board back of McCandless here. We see Eddie Kerner getting ready to make the eventual pass for the race lead, probably within the next lap or so. But Stewart was one of the first ones to come in amongst these drivers who were splitting this race. He's up into the 8th spot now as Kerner makes the pass for the race lead, but Stewart did a really nice job of timing it. And if you're going to end up in this window, you either want to be on the back end of it or the front end of it. Stewart was one of the first ones to come down pit road. He's reaping the rewards now, gained a few spots as part of that pit cycle, and now it's a top 10 run to show for it.
Absolutely, as here they come around the circuit, we see Blake McCandless follows into the clutches of Brian Mercurio. He has a little bit of breathing room once, though, they get to Wyatt Tinsley. It's about a 4-second gap between himself and, of course, the driver of Colin Keister. So there you go. So this could be a good strategy for a possible top 5, maybe top 10 finish for Blake McCandless if he has enough fuel to get right there to the end.
McCandless last lap with a 36.1. Kerner ran a 34.6, so about a second and a half. Now, those time gaps are going to taper off. Kerner is going to slide back towards the 35s and the 36s as this run progresses. So you won't see that kind of gap in 20 laps or so. But I think, top 10, top 15 for Blake McCandless certainly in the cards. When you look at this here, he's got about 2 seconds on Champagne, and they collectively have about 4 seconds on Colin Keister. So gap from McCandless to Keister about 4 seconds. We'll see how quickly Keister is able to close that gap, and we'll do a little math, take note of it, and see whether or not Keister's able to get back up to Champagne and McCandless and make the pass back into it. Here's Brian Mercurio getting a good look off the nose of the New Jersey native out of the Garden State, trying to go drag Eddie Kerner back to his front bumper. It's a 7/10 of a second lead for Kerner at the moment, but last time by, Mercurio was 0.2 of a second faster on the stopwatch.
Yeah, he has been really just slowly reeling him in lap after lap. Even before that last round of pit stop, Mercurio was doing that same thing, starting to taper into this battle for the race lead. He is going to be one to watch as he slowly works his way through, but running that same identical line here, and that's helping him out a little bit lap after lap. Let's see what the times are as they come across the line once again. Still about a 10th difference, but he picked up another 10th on Eddie Kerner. So this could be an exciting race to the finish between these two NFR drivers.
It's almost even on tire strategy as well. Mercurio came in 1 lap after Eddie Kerner, so this is just about heads up between the two NFR drivers to figure out who wants to win this race if this stays green the rest of the way. That's something else that we have to consider as well. That may factor into things depending on how this all shakes out. But at the stripe, we'll take a look at times. It was a 9.86 to a 8.95 last time. This time, it's a 35.0 to a 34.9. So Mercurio chops off another 10th. It's now down to 0.4 of a second between Eddie Ball and Dr. Bob.
Here they come through the middle of the corner. Mercurio gets a great run off corner exit. Kerner, though, trying to just see if he can find that little extra grip to keep Mercurio behind him. He'll stay right there just above that first seam in each of the corners. Same thing with Mercurio as they come through the middle of turn 3 and 4. Kerner just trying to be a little bit patient, try to make sure he can take care of his equipment, but Mercurio's got a little bit of the toe from the draft, as well as also just lap after lap, still another 10th faster, making almost 2/10 faster between himself and Kerner.
Just over a 10th that Mercurio picked up on Kerner that last time by. The 41 machine is gaining on Kerner. It's New Jersey versus Illinois for the lead here at Homestead-Miami with 15 laps to go. Mercurio visibly inching closer to the rear bumper of Kerner's Ford Mustang as they come back across the stripe. We'll look at times again. A 35, a 25 to an 11. So Mercurio with another 10th, and now diving to the inside, looking for the race lead is Brian Mercurio.
Now, don't count the fact of that number 20 car as well of Wyatt Tinsley. He has been slowly reeling in your race leaders as well. He's actually been faster than both of your race leaders each of the past few laps. So he could have a shot if these two start getting together a little bit and racing hard for the race lead.
And that is something I think you have to consider if you're Brian Mercurio. Yes, you want to try and make this pass, but you don't necessarily want to give up ground. However, let's also consider the fact that the top 3 drivers are all out of the North Force Racing stable, so they will understand the importance of working together, because the ultimate goal is to try and get as many North Force drivers into the Coke Series as possible. And in that sense, it doesn't necessarily matter which one of these cars wins, so long as it is a North Force car. Presley Gilson and company are going to be happy.
Yeah, absolutely, but still there is that little bit of competition, though, James, where you want to be that driver to get the win for your organization. Of course, North Force being one of the teams who won the championship with their driver, of course, of Parker White last season, and they're looking to try to continue their dominance going into 2025 as they go side by side for the race lead. Mercurio on the bottom, Kerner on the top, Tinsley looking onwards in the middle as they come through. He'll go to the top side as they drag race down the back straightaway.
Kerner's able to hang on for the moment, but Mercurio will have another shot down low as Tinsley is indeed gaining on this bunch. Let's remember, Tinsley not only has plenty of experience in the sim, but consider who comes out of his region and out of his area on the real life level. Connor Hall, the back-to-back NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series champion, also coming out of that Hampton, Virginia area, also considers Langley Speedway his home. And now Tinsley's starting to get into this as Mercurio and Kerner continue to fight. As they roll on, here's a good look at Wyatt Tinsley. He's got a fabulous view to this battle. Also worth noting, McCandless has slid back into the 9th spot, and Champagne is back to 19th. They're going to have a tremendous amount of work to do over the last 10 laps to try and maintain some track position, but Kerner's still got the lead for the moment. Mercurio is there, but he hasn't been able to make the pass just yet.
Here they go. He'll go to the bottom of the racetrack right here. Could he pick up the 2-for-1 special? Not quite. The big momentum on the outside is going to be an improvement for Mercurio and Kerner for the time being, but Wyatt Tinsley, with these two racing hard, he's still running faster by 2 to 3 tenths than Eddie Kerner and Brian Mercurio. Wyatt Tinsley just being patient, waiting for that opportunity to sneak his way through to have a shot at the race lead, as we're now coming to under 10 laps to go.
Just under the 10 to go mark. 2 hands out of Barney the flagman's place atop the flag stand, and not too much time left if you're Brian Mercurio. And I wonder now, is Mercurio saving up for one last charge? Is he trying to keep Wyatt Tinsley at bay? Is he worried that Tinsley may go away from the front of this and run away from the entire field if he can clear Mercurio? Lots of considerations to make, but now Mercurio's going to go for it down to the bottom, so that'll give Tinsley the opportunity to roll momentum on corner exit on that high line and maybe draw even with Mercurio into turn 1.
He's going to try. He's got a good run off corner exit off turn number 4 here, and he's going to see what he can do. Will he send it down to the bottom? Yes, he will, and Mercurio and Kerner go to the top side. How about Tinsley? Just sends it in the middle of the corner, gets a great run. Can he close the deal down the back straightaway? No, they go even up side by side, and Mercurio will now get up ahead of the number 20 Toyota of Wyatt Tinsley for the moment, as now Tinsley, this is where he's strongest, right there in the middle of turn 3 and 4, as we watch a little further back the battle for 11th, as Maines is dealing with some Altus Esports drivers.
Maines in the middle of an Altus sandwich, and Blake McCandless is just behind this bunch too. McCandless now back to the 14th position as you see Wenzel and Maines duke it out, and Wyatt Tinsley going to the bottom here to try and get underneath Mercurio. I think if you're Eddie Kerner, Wyatt Tinsley may be your best friend, because Tinsley is keeping from Mercurio from being able to run that bottom line. That's where Mercurio was able to make up time on Kerner earlier, but Mercurio, I think, now a little bit afraid to go down there unless Tinsley does it too, but he just can't quite gain the track position and gain those tenths on Kerner like he was a few laps ago.
I think it's safe to say now, there with these 3 racing, and now Tinsley's also starting to fall off a little bit right there. That's going to cause them to burn up their equipment a little bit. They're okay to still keep on racing for the time being, as Garrett Maines and the 77 of Doucette get a little too close for comfort off turn number 4. But still, I think that those tires are starting to fade a little bit with those 3 battling so hard for the race positions.
Be curious to see if anybody else from this bunch decides to get caught up in anything else. Agno Phillip is the first car behind the battle that you see on the bottom portion of your screen. A reminder, there's 1 drop amongst the 7 races in the Contender Series, so we've seen it plenty of times in years past. Every single position matters in this, and whatever you can do to maximize your run and get as many points as you possibly can, do it. Give yourself that opportunity and that chance, even if it's a few spots. McCandless still net positive, even though he's running in 16th at the moment, still up on where he was. Might slide back a few more spots, but given that he was as low as 27th, I think McCandless will take this if it ends up this way.
Absolutely here, as they now are starting to taper off a little bit amongst your top three. I think everyone now is trying to figure out how to cool off their tires a little bit and get set for this final 3 to 4 lap dash to the finish. How about this? Almost thinks about going 3 wide. Here comes Mercurio down to the bottom of the racetrack. Kerner stays up towards the top side along with Wyatt Tinsley, and shot out of a cannon. They will go down the back straightaway. A couple of car lengths separate each one of them as they dive it down into turn 3.
Eddie Kerner has just been able to maintain this. Tinsley's got a very interesting line. I'll see if he runs it again over in turn 1, but enters at a shallower angle than everybody else and just drifts way up the racetrack and then catches it and starts to roll off on the fence. You'll see it here. Mercurio trying to run it a little bit, but Tinsley just sort of drifting up towards the wall there and then getting back on the gas and running that high line on corner exit, trying to find some way to get around Mercurio. He hasn't yet, though, and Eddie Kerner now 2.5 laps away from victory in the Contender Series at Homestead.
Kerner doing everything he can here as they work their way through the middle of the corner. Popsicle sticks in the air here from Barney the Flagman. 2 laps to go around Homestead.
Kerner has been able to maintain this gap. It's held steady at about 0.3 of a second, but just not anywhere for Tinsley or Mercurio to go. And as long as Kerner runs that high lane, he may not be any faster, but he's using the dirty air to his great advantage, and he's maintained all this track position.
Really good run right now as they will now dive it in. Tinsley tries to go to the top. Kerner and Mercurio stay towards that middle section of the circuit as they work their way off turn number 4 for the white flag. One more shot for each one of these drivers to try and find the grip they need to challenge Kerner for the race lead.
Kerner has had one of the fastest machines throughout, especially the final 70 laps of this race. The last time through turns 1 and 2 for our leading Norse Force Racing trio. Nothing, though, they can do to gain any positions on Eddie Kerner, and Kerner just has to make it through the final set of corners as there's one more shot from Brian Mercurio, but he can't get to the rear bumper, and out of turn 4 comes the Chicagoland native. Eddie Kerner will lead a 1-2-3 podium finish for Norse Force Racing as Kerner wins round 2 of the 2024 eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series at Homestead-Miami.
How about that here for the Norse Force drivers as they will celebrate congratulatory bumps here from Kerner, Wyatt Tinsley, Mercurio, and a little bit of a good photo opportunity for the North Force team to shoot as they work down the back straightaway.
Eddie Ball was absolute money tonight in the second half of this race. Had one of the fastest machines and then just did what he needed to do to lock down a win in the Contender Series, and how precious that may end up being in the grand scheme of things. You never know how important these wins can be, and after the way things panned out 1 week ago, I know he is going to take that and be thrilled with it. He's the new points leader as well. Last week, second at Las Vegas. This week, winner. This is a driver that has the mile-and-a-half program down pat. If he can just maintain through this middle portion of the schedule, Eddie Kerner on a very strong path right now to be in the Coke Series in 2025.
Absolutely a great drive for him. And of course, when you think about it, who was the driver of the North Force Racing that won the championship at this track a couple of weeks ago? Parker Wyden. Of course, it was to be no surprise that NFR would showcase their dominance here at the Homestead-Miami Speedway.
In order to be good in the world of eNASCAR, you have to have a strong mile-and-a-half program, and I think you make a great point there, Taylor. Doesn't matter what car you've got, NFR has figured out how to run these mile-and-a-half tracks, and looking forward to chatting to all of their drivers here in just a moment when we go to our post-race interviews. Let's take a look, though, at the full field rundown, tell you where your favorite driver finished. Kerner, Mercurio, Tinsley, your top 3. We'll chat with them all. Matthew Zwack also gets it done. So that's a 1, 2, 3, 4 for NFR, sweeping the top 4 positions at Homestead. A dominant performance for North Force Racing tonight.
Moving on, as they will look through the rest of the top 10, Matthew Morton will come home in 11th. Garrett Maines as well. Agno Phillips in 13th. Ryan Doucette 14th. Ethan Lane makes a good recovery to 15th with Malik Ray, Nate Stewart, Dalton England, and Matt Busa and Blaze Crawford rounding out your top 20.
Blake McCandless slid back to the 21st position when it was all done. Cody Bias is 22nd. Michael Venable 23rd. Brad Wright 24th. Ryan Luza was 25th after everything proceeded this evening. Kwame Scott and Michael Bumgarner there next to each other. Cade McClinney, Kevin Champagne was on McCandless' strategy, fell to 29th at the end of things. And then your final 10 drivers, a lot of these at the back ended up in trouble. Frisch, Yereshak, and Hurst caught up in early wrecks, and for Yereshak in particular, I know that's got to sting. Top two qualifying efforts to start the year, and not too many points to show for it. 31st last week, 39th this week. He's going to need a big run in the middle portion of this schedule. There is your full field rundown. We now turn our attention to tonight's race winner, Eddie Kerner out of Chicago, Illinois. Eddie, you had a tough run the second half of this race. How tough was it to not only hold off drivers as fast as Brian and Wyatt, but when you know their teammates and you know that they know pretty much every single page of your playbook, how much more difficult does that make that to try and maintain the lead?
A lot more difficult because we are all, I feel, very similar skill set, and we're on basically the identical setups because we're all obviously teammates. So much harder, and they're both great drivers, and I had the advantage though with clean air. I know clean air was king, and Brian struggled running the top in 1 and 2 in our practice sessions. So I knew as long as I got up there and protected the top, that was going to be hard for him to get by me. Luckily, right when he got to me was right when kind of all the tires evened out. So that lap of tires he had advantage-wise kind of just faded out as he was getting to me. So I sweated a lot there. I was working my behind off, but finally get a win is so good.
Not only do you end up with the win, but this, from my perspective, this is a different Eddie Kerner than what we've seen in prior seasons in Contender. It's not your first go-round in this series. What have you changed between past seasons of racing in the series compared to this year to allow you to have such a strong start?
A little bit of it's luck. I feel last year that wreck inside the top 5 that was right in front of my face, I would have been in it last year versus this year, missing it. But my pace has just picked up tremendously with help from Graham, Steve, and all the Coke guys on NFR. Being able to do pack sessions with them throughout the year and Coke really have kind of made my driving technique super smooth and super consistent, where I can now be super consistent and almost practically lock myself in 2 races in.
Yeah, what kind of value do you put on this victory, knowing that you've got the 1.5-mile portion of the Contender Series largely done, save for Texas, and things are going to change from here on out? So to bank these kind of points, what's that mean to you?
Huge. These are my 2 best tracks besides for Darlington on the schedule, and to just, as you said, bank the points is just what I need to do. Just get 2 good points, and the rest of the season I can afford now something stupid happening in 2 or 3 races. Hopefully not. Hopefully we can go for a championship with this strong of a start. But it's just huge, and huge thanks to Jarrett, who again puts in thousands of laps, and everyone on North Source. Mike Frisch, huge help. Zwack, Brian, Wyatt was helping me a lot, and Graham and Steve and all those guys. It's awesome having such a collaborative team and helpful team.
Also representing the iRacing brand well, he's got the hoodie on as he celebrates victory in Miami. Eddie Kerner, Eddie Ball, victorious tonight at Homestead-Miami Speedway. We now turn our attention from the race winner to our runner-up. Brian Mercurio is with Taylor Burris.
Here with Brian Mercurio, and I gotta say, good night for you after, I have to say, a little bit of a tough night for you on Monday night for your team, the New York Jets, I have to say. So how do you feel regarding this finish here, and what was that you were possibly missing to get that extra oomph against Eddie Kerner?
Yeah, I mean, you think that having the tire advantage would be the way to go. Only coming out about 1.5 seconds behind him, despite pitting Everyone knows that. You guys hear me? We're good?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Sorry, my mic was freaking out. So yeah, you'd think you'd have the tire advantage, coming out only about a second and a half behind Eddie, but just, it's one of those things that, catching the guy is one thing, passing him is a whole different thing. Fortunately, Eddie's one of my teammates over at North Force Racing, so probably on a very similar, if not the exact same setup as me. So when you have a lot of these guys that are just as fast as you, you might think that the one lap advantage comes in, but I caught up to him and he started to run the high line, which is kind of, if you want to defend, you got to defend the right rear here. So just couldn't get it done, but absolutely thrilled with second place points. I will not complain about that at all.
One quick thing before we let you go in celebration with this podium with your team. Consistency is always critical when it comes to these qualifying series, whether it be the qualifiers for the trucks or here with the contenders. How critical is these points that you just received tonight helping you move forward to have a chance to race in the Coke Series in 2025?
It's huge. I've been doing the Road to Pro ladder here since 2020. Every single year that I've attempted it. I've been in the Contender Series even after I qualified into the Coke Series in 2022. I got relegated down to Contender, and unfortunately I didn't qualify the way through. So even though I flipped between Road to Pro and Contender, this is my fifth straight season here in Contender, and I've only been able to advance once. And I completely understand the dynamic of needing to points race. Don't get me wrong, wins are cool. If this is the Coke Series, wins are cool. I probably would have gone or did a little bit more to try to get that win. But I think people really undervalue the art of points racing here. And as much as I would have absolutely loved to win tonight, a second place points finish is absolutely nothing to complain about, and something I'll take any single day.
That is Brian Mercurio coming home with second place. Next up here, we're going to talk to Hampton, Virginia's very own Wyatt Tinsley, and he's caught up with James Pike.
Hampton, Virginia's Wyatt Tinsley. Wyatt, I know you had a lot of fans in Twitch chat, a lot of folks from the Tidewater region trying to cheer you on to get you to victory, but even though it's not a win, 2 top 3s to start off this campaign in Contender. What's your level of satisfaction with the double podium finishes to start the season?
I feel like I don't think I could ask for much better, to be honest with you. I think we clean and cut executed for as points wise. I gotta give it to Eddie and Brian there. They just got me there in the long run, just a little bit. And I gotta give it to North Force Racing, man. We are 1, 2, 3, 4 in this race. Alex Russell P7. Like the fact that we are just continued dominating. I just gotta give out to Jarrett Lieber, man. It's just so much work that he puts in for these setups, and it's just insane. I know Frisch had an unlucky day, but I swear Frisch would have been up there with us as well, if not better. And I got to give my heart out to him and Breyer that wrecked and that caution there. But yeah, I got to thank you for everyone supporting. I'd appreciate it a lot. P3 again. I'm going to be coming the next Sheldon Creed, I guess, of the series. But we'll see if we can keep up the consistency going into the next race. I think it's Phoenix. Phoenix is one of our good tracks as well. So hopefully we keep up the consistency. And yeah, just continue our momentum back into the Coke Series for 2025, which is going to be awesome.
If last year was about establishing yourself as a player in eNASCAR and making it to the Coke Series, what do you hope that this year's run in Contender says about you?
Honestly, the biggest thing for me would probably be the Contender Championship. Even though it doesn't mean anything, I feel like if I could win the championship, it would show that I have improved as a driver, because I ran 21st back-to-back points in both my Contender or my Coke Series career season. So if I could win the Contender Championship, I could build off that momentum and just get better of his overall driver going into the Coke season next year. And hopefully we can continue our momentum for Daytona as well. I know that's probably one of our best tracks, plate rise, so should be good. But yeah, I gotta give it a big thanks to Pioneers and Quick Trip and Price Chopper for supporting the team as well. Like greatest team and greatest organization to be a part of, in my opinion. So thank you to everyone supporting, and I thank y'all too for broadcasting as well. I always thank everyone for broadcasting, puts the time and effort producing and everything. So y'all have a great night.
Wyatt Tinsley with a lot of support from people at home. I know Kansas City Pioneers had tons of people at the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series Championship back in Charlotte, and looking forward to putting another run that will get him to Contender and give him another chance to win in the Coke Series at Daytona like he did back in February. Next up for us, Taylor Burris, 1 week from tonight, 8:30 p.m., Phoenix Raceway, Valley of the Sun, and one of the trickier tracks that we visit on the eNASCAR Contender Series schedule.
It really is a track that's going to provide a lot of different opportunities. The first short track that we'll deal with as they will try to work their way through, and it's going to be interesting to see how these drivers will fight their way through, especially for those who are not having the best of luck the past 2 races. How can they find a way to recover, and possibly for some need to go to the drawing board to figure out what improvements they need to make.
And it begins a different run in this series. We move away from the mile and a half and 2 tracks that are a little bit different until we get to Texas to round it out next month. Meanwhile, in the world of eNASCAR College iRacing Series, the time attack has now opened for race number 3 of the fall season from Kansas Speedway, running the cars, the NASCAR Xfinity Series. That time attack is open through October 24th. So you have 9 days to try and get in your time and the racing. The A split will be broadcast here on the iRacing Twitch channel and eNASCAR.com/live on October 29th, but you can find yourself running in the B or C split as well. But it's the A split that makes that money. That's the one you want to try and be a part of. And Kansas is a fabulous mile and a half, one of the best in eNASCAR. Should put on a great show, Taylor.
Absolutely. We look forward to seeing those actions do that and seeing all the colleges. But, of course, here with the Contender Series, we celebrate Eddie Kerner, who takes home the checkered flag here at the Homestead-Miami Speedway.
A big congratulations to Eddie Kerner and everyone at North Force Racing on their victory this evening. And for all of our partners at eNASCAR, for Drew Adamson, Cisco Scaramuza, and the production team at iRacing, and for my colleague in the booth, Taylor Burris, I am James Pike. Thank you so much for watching iRacing's broadcast of the eNASCAR Contender iRacing Series for the virtual Homestead-Miami Speedway, and we'll see you 1 week from tonight for race number 3 from Phoenix Raceway.